Barkley. It is upon us, the tale of the tape, with the 43-year-old Charles Barkley, who Kenny says is coming in over 325.
Yes, sir.
And 67-year-old, 158-pound Dick, the ageless one, Pavetta.
I can't believe that Charles actually agreed to do it here.
Let's quickly go to Cheryl Miller.
Hola, Julie. This is the Ball Don't Lie podcast here on Penn State Sports Night. I'm Hunter Pitcoff, just doing this solo again. Hopefully, I can have somebody on next week. It is a little boring sometimes talking to myself, but at least I get to talk about something I enjoy talking about, which is basketball, of course. Today's podcast, I decided to, get a little bougie with it. I changed up the format just a little bit. Going to be diving into a little more niche kind of topics, if you will, rather than more broad topics. But nevertheless, should be a good podcast. A lot went on over this last week. And, of course, we are entering All-Star break as well. So no NBA action for about 5-6-ish days. But nevertheless, still a lot to recap from this week and, of course, looking ahead. So some of the topics I will be talking about later on the podcast, all the drama going on in Philadelphia right now, there's so many angles to talk about there. Going to be talking about the implications and the outcomes from the Golden State Warriors Minnesota Timberwolves deal during the deadline. Going to be talking about the dysfunction in Sacramento. They typically are dysfunctional as usual. Going to be talking about this crazy science experiment that is the Houston Rockets, see if that can hold up for the duration of the regular season and, of course, carry over into the playoffs. But to start off around the association, still going to keep that going. The Toronto Raptors were on a 15-game winning streak, and were downed by the Brooklyn Nets of all teams, a team that has been pretty underwhelming this season, ended up coming out with the 101-91 victory. No need to panic if you're Toronto. Wasn't a great showing on the offensive side of things, but nevertheless, there's a lot of talent on this team. They will be represented very well in the All-Star game with Pascal Siakam, first-time All-Star starter. Also, Kyle Lowry having a great season as well. They were not busy during the deadline. I thought they'd make a move or two, but they did not. They kept pat, and I think that this team, outside of Milwaukee, could be the team that really gives them trouble in the playoffs because they got experience, they got the confidence, and they got the talent, and they play hard on both ends of the floor. So watch out for the Raptors. In terms of the Nets, going to be curious to see if all their pieces fit well together with Kyrie, obviously Spencer Dinwiddie, and Karis LeVert. All three of them are ball-dominant guards. All of them can create off the dribble. We'll see if they end up, holding on to that 7 seed in the Eastern Conference. The next thing up, we got Damian Lillard. He unfortunately hurt his groin in their last game, so he will not be competing in the All-Star game. He'll still be performing, though, at the All-Star game. Dame Dollar, the rapper, his alter ego, if you will. He'll still be spitting them bars. He'll still be in Chicago, which is good, but will not be in the All-Star game. I guess the only positive for this is that Devin Booker, about time, shouldn't have been an alternate, should have been in the All-Star game to begin with, but he is now in the All-Star game. I know the Suns suck. They're 12th in the Western Conference. That's not very good, especially considering how they started the season. But Devin Booker, in his own right, averaging 26.4 points per game, 6.3 assists per game, and 4.2 rebounds per game. Also just been extremely efficient as well. Devin Booker has been due for an All-Star game for quite some time, and I'm glad to see D-Book finally get that nod. Next up, there was an interesting feature done on Jaylen Brown. It seems like there's been quite a few of them, especially done by Bleacher Report. Taylor Rooks, who is, one of the better reporters in the game, especially for the NBA. She did her Take It There. She's done. It's kind of like an in-depth interview. She's done it with guys like Dwayne Wade, I believe, Jimmy Butler, to name a few. She started up again with Jaylen Brown, and he kind of just talked about saying his infamous quote here, "I didn't peak at 21." He's just talking about, overcoming the doubts, both internally and externally, and he's had a terrific season, and the Celtics have also had a terrific season. Jaylen Brown, probably one of the first guys named out of the All-Star game, probably, just on the outside looking in. He had two other teammates, Kemba and Jason Tatum, both make it in over him, but nevertheless, don't discredit what Jaylen Brown has done. He's had a terrific bounce-back season for Boston, and that's coming from a Laker fan. Next up, there are some guys who were signed post-trade deadline, some guys off the waiver wire, if you will. Mavs signing Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. I guess the Hornets finally decided that he was not going to live up to that number 2 status. I guess it was about time. If like a 55-year-old Michael Jordan can beat an NBA player, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, in a one-on-one game, then perhaps this is not the guy. And the Hornets also got rid of Marvin Williams. He signed with the Milwaukee Bucks. Not sure how much he's going to play there, but he is a good fit because he shoots a lot of threes. And the Bucks need shooters, of course, around their prized possession, which is Giannis. Now, the Lakers, a lot of people said that they whiffed on the trade deadline, didn't really get anybody. Obviously, they stayed pat. Don't worry, though. Frank Vogel says that Alex Caruso is a secret weapon on the team. Don't know if he's a secret anymore. The bald mama, we all know he gets it done. But anyways, though, but if the Lakers are to get help, they are looking on the free agent wire as well. Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith, two guys, to name a few. Both have played with LeBron. Did Dion Waiters play? I believe Dion Waiters did play with LeBron in Cleveland for a little bit. Then he got traded. And then J.R. Smith, of course, won a championship with LeBron. I think both of them kind of make sense, but I don't think either of those moves will really put the Lakers over the top. Maybe for depth reasons and just a change of pace. Either Waiters Island or J.R. Swish will get the job done. But nevertheless, the reason why the Lakers are going after those two guys is because the main piece that they were looking at, Darren Collison, is opting to stay retired despite the rumors that he was going to come back. It was either the Lakers or the Clippers that were supposed to be the target destinations for the LA native, a guy who played at UCLA, of course. Also did play for the Clippers a few years ago during the Lob City era. It was the backup to Chris Paul. I think Darren Collison would have been a good fit for the Lakers, but unfortunately he will not be coming back. He is staying retired, only, I believe, 31 years old, and he had a good year last year with Indiana, but it's a family decision. That's why he did it. Wanted to, practice his faith with God and his, practice being a good husband and father and things of that nature. So, good decision for Darren Collison, I guess, if that's what keeps him happy. Next up, of course, I don't want to be like ESPN, mode here and hype up Zion, but he did have a career high 31 points against the Portland Trail Blazers in their last game, being the New Orleans Pelicans. And Melo, of course, Carmelo Anthony said Zion is, quote, Melo said Zion isn't, quote, comparable to anybody that I've seen that's coming from a Hall of Fame player in Melo, of course. I guess the little question we can ask here, can Zion actually surpass Ja Morant for Rookie of the Year, at least a front runner? And if so, what needs to happen? It's going to be hard because Ja Morant is having a terrific season, and the Grizzlies are having a terrific season. So I think for Zion to pass Ja Morant, because of course, Ja's played 47 games up to this point. Zion has played 9. I think Zion and the Pelicans would have to make the playoffs, and he would just have to play so fantastic. Now, their numbers are fairly comparable in terms of both very elite. Zion averaging 21 points per game, 7.7 rebounds per game, 2.3 assists, shooting 57.6% from the field, 40% from 3, and only 27 minutes per game. Ja Morant to the same tune, averaging 17.6 points, 3.5 rebounds, 7 assists per game, shooting 49.7% from the field, 37.6% from 3, in just under 30 minutes a game. So both guys having terrific seasons. I think Ja Morant will probably end up winning Rookie of the Year. I would rather take Zion over Ja slightly, like if I was rebuilding a team, just because I think Zion is the better player, has a higher ceiling, but Ja Morant is fantastic, and I can't wait for both these guys to continue to blossom. It's crazy to think that they were both on the same AAU team, and neither of them were even the best player. That's insane. It just shows you both of them are kind of late bloomers, especially Ja Morant, and now both of them are just absolutely dominating the NBA, even as rookies. Now, of course, we got the All-Star Game coming up. Festivities will start this Friday, the Celebrity Game, which everybody watches. No. And then also the Rising Skills Challenge. I think the Lakers have had someone in that Skills Challenge for, I think, 4 or 5 years in a row now. Not this year, though. They don't have a young player, second-year rookie that is good enough to play in it. Kyle Kuzma for the Lakers won it last year. So the youth movement in LA is perhaps over. Now they're winning games, so they do not have players, good young players per se, at least second-year or rookie players that will compete in it. So I'll be watching more or less for my Dukies and some of the other players I really like a Trae Young or Luka, things of that nature. I always like watching it. It's not great basketball, but it's fun to watch. They get some cool offensive moves off in there, and it's a good time. So I'm going to make some predictions for some of the other contests going on Saturday and Sunday. So all the competitions happen on Saturday. So that's the skills comp, the three-point contest, and the slam dunk contest. Skills comp, I'm going with a sleeper. I'm going to go with Chris Middleton for the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know why I'm going with him. He's a great shooter. He's got good handles. That's kind of the MO when it comes to the skills comp. I guess he represents the forwards or big men, if you will. He's more of a tweener, more of a wing player, but he's not like a pure point guard either. So I think Chris Middleton, I don't know. I have a feeling he's going to win. That's a sleeper pick there. Three-point contest, stacked field like it always is. I'm going to go with Buddy Hield because Buddy Hield, I feel like, is a guy that he just has such a quick release. His form's always super consistent, and I feel like, he's a little pissed off right now. A little mad at the Kings. We'll get into that later. Not happy with his minutes, not happy with his role, so maybe he takes it all out on the three-point contest and the people in it, and he ends up hosting a trophy, so at least something positive comes from Buddy Hield this season. And dunk contest, we got a pretty good field. My boy Dwight Howard's in it. That's, of course, who I'm going to be pulling for. However, he's definitely the oldest in the field. I'm not sure he's going to win. Pat Connaughton, watch out for him from the Bucks. Boy's got hops. He's a two-sport athlete. Could have went pro for ML in the majors if he wanted to. Instead, opted to play basketball. I'd say it was a pretty good decision. Derek Jones, who kind of disappointed in the dunk contest a few years ago when he was in it, but this boy's got hops. Maybe the best in-game dunker of any of these guys. And last but not least, Aaron Gordon, who's a part of the most legendary duel, or one of the most legendary dunk contest duels ever. Probably the most I've seen. I think the only other comparable one is the Dominique Wilkins-Michael Jordan one that went on for like 2-3 hours or something. That was crazy in the 80s. But I am going to go Aaron Gordon. It's his third time in the dunk contest. First time again. Just came up short to Zach LaVine in 2016. Second time it was the next year in 2017. Aaron Gordon, he was hurt entering the game, entering the contest, but he still competed. He just didn't have that same type of bounce that he normally has. And then also, this is his third appearance. I think 3 times a charm. I think Aaron Gordon's motivated. I'm going to take the Orlando Magic forward to get the victory here. Now, of course, on Sunday is the All-Star Game itself. I went over the rules a few weeks ago. They're obviously going to be doing a lot of tributes to Kobe and Gianna and all the victims, of course, involved in the helicopter crash. So scoring and everything will be very, very different, per se, in the style of it. But I think it's going to be really competitive, a lot of fun to watch. I'm going to go Team LeBron here, no bias. I was really tempted to pick Team Giannis because I wanted to, be a little different. But I think Team LeBron's better. They got a better team. And I'm going to go with the Chi-Town native Anthony Davis to win his second All-Star Game MVP. I think he has the most points in All-Star Game history. I'm going out on the whim there. He scored 52 in 2017. That's a lot of points. I think he'll put up a lot of points again and, continue that competition, in LA. They're really competitive, being the Lakers, one of the best teams in the NBA. I think Anthony Davis carries that mindset over and wins the MVP in front of, I'm sure, a lot of family, friends, coaches, neighbors, things of that nature in Chicago. And, of course, no team gets left behind here on the Ball Don't Lie podcast. We cover everybody and everything, or I try my best to. But, of course, I always give my players of the week. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, first player of the week is going to be Jamal Murray for the Denver Nuggets. Of course, I was watching the Lakers-Nuggets game last night. Obviously, more fun to talk about it since the Lakers did pull it off in overtime. But, man, Jamal Murray was special. He was really, really good. Over this last week, he's averaging 31.3 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 65.8% from the field, and 4 threes per game. 4 threes made per game. Man, that's really good. And the Nuggets entered that game against the Lakers on a 6-game winning streak. They lost, but they have been really good. Jamal Murray averaging 29 a game in the month of February as well. The Nuggets are the second seed in the Western Conference right now. They have playoff experience already. They've won in the playoffs already. This is not going to be a team that's going to be easy to take down. If the Lakers or the Clippers, a team like that, has to go against them perhaps in the second round, it is not going to be easy. It's hard to win in Pepsi Center. Both teams came to play. Everyone always talks about the slump entering the All-Star break, how teams get sloppy, lazy. They kind of lackadaisical, if you will. Frank Vogel and Mike Malone, the two head coaches of this game, made it clear to both teams that they needed to compete and play hard, and both teams did. It made for a great game, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Next up, I'm going to be talking about two former Lakers, if you will, during the dark ages. First off, it's going to be Jordan Clarkson. He has fulfilled his role really nicely in Utah. That was a great get from the Jazz. He's averaging 22.7 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 26.8 minutes per game over the last 7 days. He has led the Jazz in scoring for two straight, 30 against Houston, 25 against Dallas, two very good teams. Both of those, I believe, are wins. And Jordan Clarkson is a nice compliment, especially when Donovan Mitchell is not on the court. The Jazz are going to need another scorer from the backcourt position. I really like the fit with Jordan Clarkson there. He is a player, very dynamic with the basketball. He knows how to play off it as well. And they're asking him to do what he does, which is get buckets, and he's been doing just that for Utah. So good for Jordan Clarkson and good for the Utah Jazz. Next up is another former Laker, also a part of the 2014 draft class, 7th overall, Julius Randle, now playing for the New York Knicks. Knicks are actually 4-1 in the month of February. They're playing really, really well. Julius Randle has also played really well, averaging 26 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, and 40.2 minutes per game. So he's getting a lot of touches. They're giving him more time. Of course, there's a logjam at the power forward position there in New York, but nevertheless, they're giving bulk of the minutes to Julius Randle, as they should, because he's a really good player. They paid him a lot of money, and for the Knicks, I guess good for them that they're able to see some wins. So next up here, like I said, format of this podcast is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be focusing more on single teams, single topics for some of our segments, if you will, here. But I wanted to try it out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think we could just really go into depth and hopefully get off on a lot of different tangents. So first thing, and I'll walk you through this social media saga involving Joel Embiid. So Joel Embiid and Marcus Morris, they went at it during the Sixers-Clippers game. Things got physical. And the 76ers, in fact, booed Joel Embiid after his social media posts. They were not happy being the Philly fans. They're kind of a no BS kind of fan base, if you will, and they don't really love the shenanigans Embiid pulls off sometimes, especially when things aren't going your way in Philly, you're not winning games. So what sparked all of this was Embiid going on Instagram, like anybody else would, and saying, quote, "You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Hashtag the process." Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat chimes in saying, "I know a place where villains are welcome," and he kind of gave the emoji with the shrugged shoulders and the hands out, horizontally. That emoji, if you know what I'm talking about. Try to describe it as best as I can. And then after all this, Embiid tweets, "Made for this, ... If I can take it, then you can too. Feel it tough. Hashtag all love." So this is obviously a lot to take in. This is not anything new. Embiid has always been, toying with people on Instagram, on Twitter, things of that nature. But there have been reports that say that Embiid has not been happy in Philly since Jimmy Butler left. And there's also rumors going around saying Embiid and Ben Simmons don't really get along. And obviously, the eye test, if you even watch them play, an ounce of basketball, they clearly do not fit on the court together. There's just not enough floor spacing at all. Throw in the fact that they have Al Horford there, not enough shooting help. It's a bit of a logjam in the paint, and it kind of, both Embiid and Simmons, great players in their own individual right, kind of hold each other back due to play style. And NBA execs now are like lines sniffing out meat. They're already preparing trade packages for Embiid in the event he becomes available. Now, the Sixers have not said anything. They have not leaked anything suggesting that Embiid is available. But NBA execs are preparing as if he may be, because in my opinion and many other opinions, if the Sixers were to move on from Embiid or Simmons, I think Embiid's the one to go. He's got the injury history. Ben Simmons is younger. I think it's a little more easier to build a team around Ben Simmons, especially when Embiid's out. The Sixers play really well when it's just the Ben Simmons show. The floor spacing's a lot better. It's a much more up and down game. Ben Simmons has been great on both ends of the floor this season. Maybe an all-NBA defensive player. Maybe an all-NBA player in general. Ben Simmons has been the catalyst, especially as of late, for Philadelphia this season. Both of them did play really well, though, against the Clippers, though. They both had very good games, so I will give them that. So now, let's take all this information in, right? Knowing everything that's happened over the last couple of days, over the last couple of years even. Can the Sixers make this work? My answer is no. The reason why I say that is there's enough data to show that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons just are not a good fit together. They're not. They're both great in their own right. They're both good enough to have their own teams, but perhaps they should go their separate ways. That's my opinion. I've thought that really ever since the playoffs last year. I give the Sixers credit for sticking it out. I would have too. You obviously want to make it work, especially when you have two young, franchise-altering players on your team. You want to make it work. But it just doesn't seem like this is the case now. So now it's what's next. If I'm the Sixers, this may sound crazy, but I'm blowing it up. I'm trading everybody except for Ben Simmons. Anyone's available. They probably won't trade Matisse. They probably won't trade Matisse Thybulle. They think he's like the next Kawhi Leonard or something when you talk to Sixer fans. But everybody's available but Ben Simmons. And you build the team around Ben Simmons. What his strengths. A guy like J.J. Redick was perfect with Ben Simmons, but they let him go. Jimmy Butler was perfect for that team last year with Embiid and Simmons. They let him walk, or he kind of walked on his own. So, Tobias Harris, who's my boy, he is a good fit with Ben Simmons. Perhaps you keep him, but that contract's really big. Al Horford probably plays a lot better with Simmons than Joel Embiid, but he's getting paid too much money. You probably want to get rid of him as well. I'm blowing it up. I'm blowing it up if I'm the Sixers. They've done this before. They've trusted the process before. You can argue if it's worked or not. But I wouldn't say a full-on tank. I would just get assets because Embiid, you're going to get good players for him. You're going to get good picks. You're going to get good players for Harris and Al Horford as well. I think this team, they just need an identity. They currently do not have it. And that identity needs to start and finish with Ben Simmons. So you have to build a team around Ben Simmons for the Sixers to really flourish. So now, big question here, big picture. Who can realistically land Joel Embiid in a trade? First team I wrote down is the Golden State Warriors. What? But if you really think about it, Golden State, they just got Andrew Wiggins. And Joel Embiid, they've never had a true big man like that. They had David Lee, I guess. But they never really had a true dominant big man since, like, Wilt Chamberlain. Off the top of my head. I would not say Andres Biedrich is that dominant big man Joel Embiid is. However, the floor spacing will help Embiid a ton. You got the two greatest shooters of all time, in my opinion. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson on the same team. The system they run in place, the ISO, isolating Kevin Durant, it worked. I think they can do the same thing with Embiid. And they have assets. They have first-round picks. They have a savvy front office led by Bob Myers in them. I think they can do it. I think they can pull it off. I really do. Another team I wrote is the Miami Heat. They always seem to be players for all the big-time names. Jimmy Butler's already hinting that he wants to, Embiid to come to Miami. Embiid wants to play with Jimmy Butler again. I think Jimmy brought out the best in him. They also just complemented each other's games really well. But I think for the Heat to pull this off, they're going to probably have to part ways with Bam Adebayo, who has been an all-star this year. There's no debate that Embiid is not as good as Adebayo. Embiid's 100% better. But the question is, do the Heat really want to give up Bam for him? Do they really want to give up all those assets? Sorry. And give up, their whole team for one player? I'm not sure because they got a good thing going there. I think they'd rather add Embiid to what they have and take away from what they have. So I don't think the Heat pull this off. Next up, I wrote down the Celtics. Or actually, nope, sorry, my bad. Backtrack. I wrote down not the Celtics because they won't give up anyone for anything. They are very stingy. They don't trade. because they wouldn't give up Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum for Anthony Davis, who is better than Joel Embiid. Who would say that they would give up either of those guys for Embiid? And they probably shouldn't. So that's why I don't think the Celtics would be in the trade. They're not going to give up anybody. Unless Gordon Hayward, maybe, like the Sixers are really intrigued by him, but they're just not going to give up anything for Joel Embiid. So they're not gonna get him. It's a fact. Next up, I have the Toronto Raptors. They have the money to make it work. I guess big question here is, can Embiid fit alongside Pascal Siakam and a guy like Kyle Lowry? I think he could. It wouldn't be perfect, but I think it'd be a better fit because Pascal can, in fact, shoot threes. He's also a pretty good passer as well. I kind of like the fit. I would not be opposed to this. I think they could pull it off. Next up, and I highly doubt this happens, but they have the assets to do it, in my opinion. That's the Sacramento Kings. They can give up a guy like Buddy Hield. He's clearly unhappy with the team. They can also maybe include Marvin Bagley or a Harry Giles or something like that. One of those dookies, one of those big men. Some picks. And then they can pair up with De'Aaron Fox, Joel Embiid. Maybe get another guy or two and really make this work. They already had one, quote, moody center in Boogie Cousins. Not sure they're going to want Embiid as well. They clearly were not interested in having DeMarcus Cousins. Embiid may cause the same problems. Not because of anything against Embiid. It just seems like people are very miserable in Sacramento. I don't know. Coincidence? I think not. So I'm going to say the Kings probably don't land him, but it'd be interesting, and they have the assets to do it, in my opinion. Now, the team that has 100% has the assets to pull this off is the OKC Thunder. They should be considered players for any big-time move or trade scenario from now on. They almost kind of control the fate of a lot of players potentially in the NBA. They have so many draft picks. They have salaries to move. Steven Adams could be in the trade. Chris Paul maybe could be in the trade. They have what it takes to make this happen. I guess the question is, do they pull the trigger? I think they would. I mean, Joel Embiid's a great player, and he would instantly be an upgrade from anything else that they have on that team. And they embraced a guy like a Russell Westbrook who's very outspoken. I think they, being the OKC Thunder, will embrace a guy like Joel Embiid. Last team I wrote down here is the Phoenix Suns. And the reason why I wrote that is because maybe they look to trade DeAndre Ayton and get an upgraded Embiid to pair with Devin Booker, who is clearly not super happy with the franchise right now. He sees his boys, D'Lo and Karl-Anthony Towns, teaming up in Minnesota. Suns don't seem to be making any moves to help out Booker. Getting a guy like Embiid would definitely, of course, immediately help them win games. It would make sense. It's a great fit. And you'll have a happy Devin Booker because you'll have a guy in Embiid that will, help him get to the playoffs and help him win some games. I guess big question here, and I just thought of this now, is that whose team is it if Embiid comes there? Because I would say Embiid's a better player than Booker, but Devin Booker's been there. He's been that dude. So you kind of wonder, does Booker give up some of his offensive power to a Joel Embiid? I don't know. I mean, he would, but would he give up kind of what Dwayne Wade did with LeBron, where he just goes, you have the keys to the team. This is your team now. It's not mine. I'm not sure Devin Booker would like that. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about that one. I don't know if he would be totally cool with that, but it is interesting to think about. So next up, we're going to be talking about two other players. Again, the, what do they call them? I think they call them the Goodfellas, if you will. That's their nickname, the trio of Devin Booker, Karl-Anthony Towns, and D'Angelo Russell. We're going to talk about the last two guys I just mentioned, the first two picks in the 2015 NBA draft, which I saw live. So Nick Friedell, who is an ESPN reporter, covers mainly the Golden State Warriors, also appears on shows such as Outside the Lines and The Jump. He was on The Jump, and he said, quote, I am all the way out on the Timberwolves. I don't believe that Karl-Anthony Towns is mature enough as a leader to be the face of a team that can contend and grow. I think that D'Angelo Russell was really solid in my dealings with him in Golden State, but there's a reason why the Warriors traded him. They do not believe that he was a core piece of a possible title contender. So D'Angelo Russell, in ordinary NBA fashion, goes to Twitter and tweets, "You're a clown." Spelling you are. So, gotta love the text lingo there. I guess the question that arises from this, because I'm not just going to solely break down what Nick Friedell said. He was pretty straight up. He was pretty blunt and deliberate about what he said. The question is, can a Karl-Anthony Towns-D'Angelo Russell duo be the foundation for a championship team? In my opinion, it's not always great doing business with your friends. It's not always the best. Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell are best friends. They've been friends for a really long time. And you know for a fact the main reason the Timberwolves made this move is to keep Karl-Anthony Towns there and to keep him happy. But I'm not sure if this is a move that will potentially lead to title contending. Maybe in a year from now they make the playoffs. Maybe. But both these guys, I kind of agree with Nick on this one. They're super talented players, but they have both had maturity issues. Both of them. And it's just, it could be age, perhaps. Like, you know, they're still, I mean, I think they're only like 3 years older than me. Like, so we're about the same age. I'm sure, you know, it's not easy being, you know, heavily publicized and not really, you know, having privacy, if you will. But in the same breath, though, I'm not sure either of these guys are really leaders. I'm just not sure. Maybe D'Angelo Russell has some of that. He did a great job in Brooklyn. But, you know, it's not always great doing business with your friends. And Minnesota, it's not like this franchise has a history of winning. They do not. They actually have a history of a lot of losing and sucking. So now the question is, you got these two really good young players. Can Minnesota put the right pieces around them? I'm not sure. I am really not sure. Because they haven't really shown much to do in the past. They trade for Jimmy Butler, then he wants to leave. They give up a guy like Zach LaVine. They give up a guy in Robert Covington. They kind of had to do that to make the trade work for D'Lo. But there's just not that much else there other than those two guys right now. And it's not like you're going to convince people to come to Minnesota. Both of them are on max deals right now, being Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell. Or D'Angelo Russell, he may not be max, but he's like really close to it. I just don't know. I really don't. I'm not super confident. I don't know if either of those guys have, you know, I think Karl-Anthony Towns is the guy who's elite in terms of the talent. D'Angelo Russell's just very, very good, next level down, like, you know, all-star. Karl-Anthony Towns is more all-NBA. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I kind of agree with what Nick said. He went for the jugular here, so I got to respect him for, you know, keeping it real and not being timid to speak his mind. But in the same breath, though, I really don't think this team's going to go anywhere. Not sure how much fun they're going to watch. I think the fit between Towns and Russell will be good, but you kind of wonder, is it going to be, you know, D'Angelo Russell, Karl-Anthony Towns in one corner and the rest of the team in the other? I think that's a legit concern to have. It's a lot of power you're giving to two young guys that haven't really proven much in the NBA outside of individual stats. They really haven't proven to be winners. Both of them have a combined 2 playoff appearances and both got smoked in both those playoff appearances. So I'm not really confident that the situation's going to be all, you know, flowers and butterflies, if you will. I guess the one thing that's interesting, though, is that I'm hearing rumors that Andrew Wiggins could be used as a trade piece for Giannis. That would be insane if the Warriors can pull off Giannis, and he would fit really well in that team. Probably better than Embiid would. Okay, so more dysfunction, of course. The Sacramento Kings. As usual, there's been rumors going around that Buddy Hield may request a trade in the offseason. If not inserted back into the starting lineup, Bogdan Bogdanovic, BB-8, is now the starter of that team. Kings owner Vivek Ranadiv, I always butcher his last name. He's frustrated with coaching in front office. I would be too. They suck this year. They have not been as good as they were last year. Apparently, they have a group text. I'm sure that's a lot of fun. between the coaching staff, the front office, and Vive. I'm sure, they just be typing away, complaining at each other, a lot of subtle disses, things of that nature. I'd love to be just a fly on the wall in that group chat, just seeing what kind of things they talk about. It's also worth noting that the Kings have not made the playoffs since the 2005-2006 season. Yikes. That's pretty bad. Now, what to make of the Kings right now? Not a whole lot to make here. They've been very disappointing this year. Marvin Bagley's been hurt, though. De'Aaron Fox has been hurt, though. They have good young players. You kind of wonder, do they have that one guy, though, that can be a true franchise player? They could have. They could have drafted Luka Doncic, but they didn't. They passed on him, just like the Suns did. And they passed on a guy like Trae Young, who, I get, De'Aaron Fox, whatever, but they just passed on all these guys. Even Jaren Jackson's arguably better than Marvin Bagley is. You kind of just wonder, is time running out for Vlade Divac and Peja Savacovic and all these guys? Luke Walton, even, he may lose his job after one season. I don't know. There's a lot going on here in Sacramento, and it is not very good. If I was them, I don't even know what I'd do. I would probably just keep building this team, keep getting a youth movement going, and just go for a star if you can. Because that's really what they're lacking. They're lacking that true number one player that can really change the course of this franchise, and I'm not sure they're going to get that player anytime soon. Next up is kind of the game within the game here. James Harden and Russell Westbrook combined for 78 points on 42 shot attempts combined in a win over the Celtics. Now, that's just one game. There's 82 of them, even more so because Houston's going to make the playoffs. Big question here is if James Harden and Russell Westbrook, I highly doubt they'll both play at that level for every game, but they are nearly impossible to beat if Houston has both those players playing at that level in the same game. It can't be with Houston where James Harden goes off one night, Westbrook goes off the other night, but the other one's just kind of For them to win games in the playoffs and survive in advance, they're going to need both those guys, their star players, to both play at All-Star, All-NBA, MVP levels every game in the playoffs. They're going to need it. They will need it. Big question here, though, of course. The Houston Rockets make the trade for Robert Covington, testing out the science experiment with Daryl Morey, risking it all. Will this pan out for Houston? Will the five-out offense work? They are 2-2, I believe, since Covington has arrived. They beat the Lakers and the Celtics, two formidable teams. It took a Bojan Bogdanovic game winner from the Utah to beat Houston. I guess question is, can Houston be kind of, the Joker, be the spoiler in the NBA playoffs, especially on the Western Conference? They could. I can see it. I will say, though, it's going to be hard for them to play a team like the Lakers in the playoffs. And I know they beat the Lakers with this small ball lineup, but for 7 games or however long the series lasts, Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, LeBron, that's so much size, and the game slows down, and your shot's not always there in the playoffs. We've seen that with Houston in the past. Their shot is not always there. It's going to be hard, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to pull it off. There's a lot going on there in Houston. They're a lot of fun to watch when it's clicking. It's ugly basketball to watch when it's not. The Houston Rockets, I like them just as an NBA team because they're just fully committed to the analytics, and I'm just glad they're not my team because I'm sure it's very frustrating and very confusing as a fan to really know what's working and what doesn't with this team. There's always a lot of turnover every year, but they play hard. They're going to have to play stout defense. It has to be a lot of team rebounding. They really need to implement their style of play and control the tempo and control the style of play every single game for them to win. And in the NBA playoffs, when there's a lot of downtime to, focus on one singular team, I think people are going to figure out Houston, and I just don't really think that they're going to be able to keep this up. Now, next up, I always have an All-NBA team. This one's a little bit interesting. It's not really a team, but it's an All-NBA All-Star moment. Of course, given the time, it is All-Star weekend. We're going to do it live and in effect. First off, one of my favorite moments in All-Star weekend was in 2007. And this has nothing basketball related. But Charles Barkley racing Dick Bavetta in like a back and forth race in Las Vegas is probably the most entertaining, weird thing I've ever seen during the All-Star game. I don't know why they did this. Charles Barkley, of course, this is post-retirement. Dick Bavetta was still reffing at this time. Charles Barkley kisses him on the forehead in the end, or whatever. It got weird. But it was a lot of fun to watch. 100% recommend going on YouTube and looking this up if you haven't seen it, or if you have and just want a refresher. It's very funny and entertaining. Had to make the top 5 list, of course. Next up, I did allude to this earlier, but the 2016 NBA Slam Dunk Contest, especially that epic duel between Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, is one of my favorite moments in NBA All-Star history. I just remember watching it, and it was just crazy dunk after crazy dunk. Never before seen dunks. Aaron Gordon with they had the hoverboard. He went in below both the knees, and then Zach LaVine, doing it through the legs from the foul line. That was just crazy. It felt like both of them won that. They should have had 2 trophies, man. Both those guys competed so hard. It sucked seeing Aaron Gordon not come out with anything. Zach LaVine, of course, went back-to-back. He won the year before. Both of them were just played so well, or competed really highly in that All-Star Game dunk contest. I really hope we can see that in the near future, because the dunk contest used to just be so much fun to watch. The last couple years have been a little blah. So hopefully the NBA can, spark up the dunk contest again, because, of course, I love the three-point contest and all, and I know all the best three-point shooters are in it, but, where's the meat and potatoes? Where's the dunk contest that we all been waiting for as NBA fans? So I'm really excited for this year's dunk contest. Hopefully it can bring back some of that same excitement. Next up on my list, it's a weird one, but I would say not only is it necessarily my favorite moment because of what happened. In fact, I was very pissed off when this happened, but it's what transpired after this that really, excited me, made me pumped. And it was in the 2012 All-Star Game. Dwayne Wade breaks Kobe's nose in an All-Star game. Kobe's going up for a layup. Dwayne Wade smacks him in the face, breaks his nose, right? Very rarely do you see someone get hurt in an All-Star game. And Kobe gets his nose broken. And then Dwayne Wade, after the game, I think some days later, he called Kobe being like, hey, man, sorry. That was my bad, whatever. And Kobe just says, I love it. What? Kobe was, pumped that he got his nose broken. And then, of course, Kobe became, temporarily the masked Mamba, because he had the big black mask on his face, looking like, Batman, if you will. And he had to obviously wear it because he wanted to play, and he had to protect the nose, so he had to wear the face mask. And he obviously was putting up huge numbers wearing that. The Lakers played the Miami Heat a few days after the All-Star game. That was one of their first games coming back from the break. And they went on to beat the Heat 93-83, and Kobe finished with 33 points on 14 and 23 shooting. So he just gave it to Dwayne Wade. That was his way of revenge. Kobe, just the ultimate competitor. Dwayne Wade, also one of the best competitors I've ever seen as well. None of those guys backed down to nothing. It was just a really funny moment, if you will. And as a Laker fan, I was very pissed off when Dwayne Wade broke his nose. I vividly remember this moment. So, yeah, that was definitely one of my, most memorable All-Star moments for sure. Next up, is a 2000 dunk contest. Probably the best individual performance, most memorable performance we've ever seen in a dunk contest. And that was by half man, half amazing Vince Carter himself. The 360 windmills, the elbow, on the rim, all those crazy dunks by Vince Carter himself. It was just, he was getting 50s like every dunk. It was insane. Basically a near perfect dunk contest from Vinsanity himself. It was a lot of fun to watch. Of course, I didn't watch it live. I was barely alive. But I've looked back and watched it many, many times. They'd be playing it on NBA TV a ton, going on YouTube, and even just seeing it on social media. I was very glad to see, Vince Carter. Yeah, the only time he ever competed in a dunk contest. That was it. But he showed out, and, he had the funny, when he crosses his hands across his neck, goes, "It's over." Like, he knew he closed it out. And then that was just prime Vince Carter with the hops and everything. He was literally, maybe the most athletic NBA player I've ever seen. Now, last but not least, and this is well before my time, was in 1992 when Magic Johnson came out of retirement for the All-Star Game and then proceeded to win the All-Star Game MVP. Of course, he retired, due to finding out he had HIV. And back then, in the 90s, it was a much more mysterious thing to handle. So Magic Johnson, basically had to force to retire on the spot. And then he came back on his, his farewell tour, if you will. Came back to the All-Star Game. Probably one of the most memorable All-Star games in NBA history. Mainly for this reason, but it was a good game in general. Magic Johnson showed out, won the All-Star Game MVP, later competed in the Olympics that year as well. So Magic Johnson, despite having a career-ending illness, I guess, I don't really know what you want to call it, he ended up on top. So shout out Magic, shout out Lakers, you know what it is. And that's just one of many All-Star moments that have happened over the course of the NBA. There's so much more. You can even look at the first ever dunk contest, or that may have been the ABA with I was in the ABA with Dr. J. I didn't include ABA moments here, but nevertheless, this was one fun podcast to do. Hoping I can get a guest on next week. As much as I love, rambling on for close to 50 odd minutes, it's also pretty good to argue with somebody else. And, we'll make it happen for sure. There's definitely a lot of super talented kids in this club that I'd be more than happy to talk some hoops with. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up here for Ball Don't Lie. Thank you for tuning in. I believe this is the 15th podcast, so 15 weeks straight, or 15 eligible weeks straight I've done the podcast for. So, I always have to come through and deliver that content no matter what, by any means necessary. So thank you to all you listeners, the ones listening since day one. Maybe this is your first time listening. Whatever the case may be, I appreciate the love, and I will see you next week.
Thank you for watching our latest edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also follow us on Twitter at PSSNTV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.